And then you have the starfighters, which sound very much like TIE fighters as they're coming in. They have that same, but then they also have like the blasters even sound more.
That was such a good impression of a TIE fighter. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Star Wars podcast, Bad Batch Breakdown series. I'm your host, Melissa.
And I'm your co-host, Matt. This is take two, just so you guys know. We recorded about 30 minutes of the episode, and then it just stopped recording and kicked Melissa out for some reason. So, and the files cannot be recovered. So if you've used Zoom before, maybe you've run into this issue. That's what we just ran into. And we were just having a great talk, flowing naturally. It was going super well. And then Zoom decided to poop its pants and ruined everything. So this is take two of that's the first time that's happened to us. So technical difficulties. This is what happens when we can't record in the same room together, but it's fine. We've recovered.
A little disappointed because that was going really well, but we're back and hopefully we won't have to take three. So let's just repeat everything that we said prior to us crashing.
Yeah, well, let's start off with some of the news, like we do with every episode. Some exciting news in the Star Wars world in the past week. So why don't you kick us off? Why don't you repeat yourself again and tell us some of that news, because it's exciting.
Rosario Dawson this week may have accidentally confirmed the casting of two prominent characters set to appear in the Ahsoka show, Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn, respectively. Rosario Dawson shared to a story a post that a fan tagged her in, exclaiming their excitement on the unconfirmed casting of Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn and Mina Masood as Ezra Bridger. This is not surprising to me, given that Mina Masood has shared a post to his Instagram in March hinting at his potential casting of Ezra by using a direct quote in his Instagram post from Star Wars Rebels. This has also been rumored since like January of this year and December of last year. So I can see this being true. It's very exciting. I hope this is true because Mina Masood looks like Ezra and Lars Mikkelsen already plays Grand Admiral Thrawn in the animated show. So bring it on. Like, hopefully that's true. I personally think it is, but I'm excited.
I'm sure it is. You know, they kind of spilled the beans on this one. And so I think it's pretty safe to say that it can be confirmed. It's very cool. These things tend to be, these rumors tend to be kind of true. She definitely spilled the beans, and then he said an obvious quote on his Instagram. So I think we can all but confirm it. So that's awesome. You and I love the transition of, live action to animation or vice versa. So I think it's great. It's a great move. It's very exciting. Obviously the Ahsoka show is not going to come out for a little while, but that's something to look forward to. And it shows us that Disney, Lucasfilm, is trying to do these things right. And so that's a little thing we can look forward to in the kind of distant future, but it's still cool to know. And then also in Star Wars news, we have, this actually came out right after the episode we recorded last week. But for those of you who don't know, Mandalorian, obviously, end of the season, we get Luke Skywalker who comes in. It's not really Mark Hamill, but it's a deep fake of Luke, which is a controversial thing. They did something similar with Admiral Tarkin and in Rogue One. Still turned out great. I thought it was awesome. Just having Luke in the show was amazing. I thought it was expertly done. However, there is a YouTuber by the name of Shamook who does deep fakes, and he took that deep fake and he improved it and made it look more like Mark Hamill. And he does other deep fakes too. He did one of Harrison Ford as Han Solo in the Solo movie. He put Billy D. Williams in there instead of Donald Glover. And he does a really, really fantastic job. And it turns out that Lucasfilm must have seen these excellent deep fakes that the guy did, and they hired him as like a senior facial recognition, engineer or whatever you call it at Lucasfilm, which is exciting because it means it opens the doors for tons of things, both in the film and TV industry. And it shows that they're trying to do these things right. And they're willing to, take your average guy off the street who's, working really hard on YouTube to improve these things. And so they put their money where their mouth is, and they hired this guy. And I think it's great. I think it's a very exciting stuff. So shout out to Shamook. Go check out his channel if you haven't. He does an excellent job of these deep fakes, not just Star Wars, but other stuff too. And it opens up doors for a lot of other possibilities in the film industry. So that's very exciting as well.
Way to surmise that. That was very efficient of you, Matt.
I was a little bit more verbose in the first take, but and maybe the second take I did a little bit better.
Our second takes were probably more cohesive than the first. This is a rare chance to improve upon the first shot at doing the show. But with that being said,
before we jump in, so I just want to do this at the beginning before we jump into the breakdown of the episode. If you guys don't already do this, follow us on Instagram, on YouTube at @star_wars_pod, on Instagram, Twitter. We're on YouTube. I just started a TikTok as well. So if you are on the TikTok world, if you're a millennial or Gen Zer and you want to check out our clips and stuff, please go give us a follow there. And then make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen. It's everywhere. So go subscribe and go do that, because we appreciate the support, and we're trying to grow this thing. So just wanted to start off with that note. Would love to have your guys' support. Anyways, with that being said, let's jump into this episode because it is quite the nail-biting, excellent episode. Why don't you kick us off first?
Ooh, I get to kick us off the first time Matt did. So, fantastic episode. Inclusion of Gregor, a character we are already familiar with, was very unexpected. Matt and I theorized on this a few weeks ago, so I was very excited to see that he showed up. Rex is back, baby. I am always happy to see more Rex. The transitionary period from the Republic to the Empire was extremely prevalent in this episode. I always love when they show us those tiny in-between details. The thematic elements of A New Hope were very, very prominent in this episode. Gorgeous animation, gorgeous backgrounds and lighting. They somehow kick their ass week to week. It just keeps getting better and better and raising the bar. The Kaminoans have some interesting story this episode, which I cannot wait to talk about in breakdown in particular. Overall, 10 out of 10 episode. To give you the quick Spark Notes thoughts, I am so excited that they went back to these story threads that we've wanted to see. And we got a massive cliffhanger at the end with Hunter being taken. And so I think leading into the finale, it's just these next two episodes are going to be wild. So those are my Spark Notes thoughts, Matt.
Yeah, I think that was very well said. The only things I would add is they did not waste any time with this episode. They get right into it. We have Rex at the very beginning, which is awesome. We obviously love to see Rex. You made the great connection there to Gregor. I'm glad you bring that up, because watch our reaction videos if you haven't, but I couldn't put my finger on who Gregor was. And I'm like, do we know him? Do we not know him? And then Melissa's like, oh, that's Gregor, who obviously Rex is with in Rebels. And I'm like, oh, there you go. Another connection. Great connection there. And then also the other thing that was great that you touched upon was we really get that world building element of transition between Republic and Empire. And I talk about this a lot because it's a really important thing. I remember going to Revenge of the Sith and being like, well, what happens in between? There's this big chunk of time that we don't see what happens. And this show is explaining all of that. And as I said before, if you could pick one episode from Bad Batch so far, I think, to someone who's not initiated into the super Star Wars universe and give them an explanation for what happened, this is one of those episodes to include, because it does a great job of showing that transitionary period. And then the other thing too I wanted to bring up was the first generation stormtroopers. It's kind of repaying homage to the initial design for stormtroopers back, when A New Hope came out, in the original trilogy. You get Death Star vibes here. It's great. And then they're all conscripted soldiers as well. So we really see that transition coming. Very stoked about that. I thought it was excellent as well. 10 out of 10. And it really sets the scene for what these next two episodes are going to be and the potential of season 2.
I'm so hyped because now we're getting the answers to the questions we've been come on, what are the Kaminoans doing? Who is Omega? Are we going to see Boba Fett? What's going on with Rex? Does he save clones? Why does he leave? So it's question after question after question. But now I feel like these last two are just going to be throwing it in your face. So it'll be wild. But with that said, let's take a look at our questions, which we started to take a look at, and then I got cut off. So crossing fingers I don't get interrupted again.
Don't worry, I'm recording on my end this time too, so we shouldn't have any issues. Fingers crossed.
So, did we summarize the episode? I don't think we did.
Not.
Okay. Well, let's look at that real quick. So the official episode summary for episode 14 of Bad Batch, titled War-Mantle, is: after receiving a mysterious distress call, the batch tracks it to a secret facility. Let's see what questions or statements you guys have this week for us.
So just another quick thing to add is this kind of confirmed a lot of your and I suspicions, right? With the Kaminoan uprising type of vibes at the beginning. Obviously, Gregor's running away from the clones. He's defecting, which is kind of reinforcing your and I theory about how maybe the chips are wearing off. Same kind of thing with Hot Hunky Harzer, Triple H, as I like to call him. He is also kind of starting to defect. And that's how the episode starts. So we're starting to get these notes of clones aren't happy. They're seeing stuff going down that they didn't sign up for. And they've been kind of used and they're being replaced. And it's really setting the scene. So I think it's great all around, the potential for where this can go. But with that being said, let's get these questions in, because I want to hear what our listeners have to say.
Okay, so let's start off with this question from Hidden Scribble. Several questions from Hidden Scribble, but Hidden Scribble says, so in regard to Rex's appearance in the beginning of this episode, the question is, what if Rex's change in attitude regarding fighting the Empire between Bad Batch and Rebels is changed because of a character's death, maybe Echo? So
Ooh.
if you notice in Bad Batch, Rex seems to have this mentality of like wanting to stand up to the Empire. But a lot of fans noticed, including myself, that like in Rebels, he's like polar opposite of that. He's like, I've had my time as a soldier. I'm done. I don't want to come back. And it really takes the Ghost crew a long time to be like, we need you. Like, we need you to come back and be a part of this.
Yeah.
Like, we're struggling. We need your help in finding bases. So one of the things I said in my reaction video with Lily is that maybe Rex just got tired of losing people. Maybe he's just lost so much that he's like, I can't do this anymore, and retires himself with Gregor and Wolf, as we see in Rebels. Like, and I don't think Hidden Scribble is too far off from that. Like, hopefully it's not Echo. Oh my God, I would hate it if Echo would die. But
I think we're going to lose some, which I thought we might actually lose one of the member of the crew in this episode. Super good action sequences. In this one, it was nail biting, and I thought it might potentially happen. It would not surprise me if we lost somebody, on the crew before the end of the season. Sad, but that's an interesting theory, Hidden Scribble, because that would make sense, right? It would tie into that. You could be totally right too, Melissa, where it's like, oh, I'm sick of losing my friends. I've seen too much death. I'm tired of it. I'm old. I can't handle this anymore. I don't want to, so that would make a whole lot of sense. And especially someone as close to Rex as Echo.
God, I really, really hope it's not Echo. Although I do think it's safe to say that Rex goes into retirement because of all the loss. I mean, like, for God's sake, at the end of Clone Wars season 7, he and Ahsoka were dragging clone bodies out and burying them one by one.
You're right. You're right. I think the other thing we could potentially see too is clones start, getting they start some dissension, some uprising, some kind of thing, whether that's Kamino or something else, and the Empire doesn't like it. They start hunting down clones or something very similar to how the Empire hunted down the Jedi. And then we could kind of see a parallel between Rex and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan goes into hiding. He's like, look, we lost. The only thing I can do is really look after Luke and stay in hiding. Same thing with Yoda. He pieces out to Dagobah. Kind of similar thing with Rex. Maybe he's like, maybe the Empire kind of starts hunting down clones or puts a bounty on their heads because they have some kind of uprising or something. I think there's a potential of something like that to happen too. So Rex is like, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with it anymore. It was too much of my life. I'm sick of it. Bye.
Oh, it just makes me sad about Rex.
Yeah.
Hidden Scribble also says, what if Rex couldn't save Gregor himself because he was currently tied up saving Wolf?
Rex is up to something. He's only in this episode for a very short time, but he's up to something. And he's, who was he talking to back on Braca? Who's he talking to then? Like, that still hasn't been answered, which I think we're going to see more Rex in these next 2 episodes. It's going to answer some more questions or leave us on some cliffhangers, wanting more for season 2 of the show, which I think they could delve into this stuff a little bit more, but they're definitely setting something up for major plot points in the future.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And you and I theorized on Wolf and Gregor potentially being in this show when episode 8 first came out. And so I don't think it's too far off to say that we might even see Wolf in the finale, even if it's only for like a split second of a cameo. Yeah. So I don't want to write any of that off. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question, Hidden Scribble has one more question, actually. And Hidden Scribble says, final thing, I'm sure y'all have already noticed, but I thought it was such a nice touch that the episode used motifs and sound effects from the original trilogy. Yes.
Oh, yeah. And I think you and I mentioned this in our first take, but that was a big thing for the this episode. I thought it was awesome. I'm sitting there and I'm like, you can tell with like the blaring alarm noises, with the themes, dun 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 dun, like that kind of themes. The musical themes are very similar. The motifs, it's all there, and I love that. And that was so crucial for connecting, the prequels and the prequel vibes to the original trilogy, and kind of filling in those gaps as we talk about. And like, it's just such a nice transitionary piece of the puzzle, which is why I like the show. Honestly, that's one of the best parts of the show, is how they use those things strategically to place in here and there, so that you feel connected to both the prequels with like the clone and that kind of vibe, and then you also have these new conscripted stormtroopers and the Death Star type of vibes in this Imperial base that they're on. And then you have the starfighters, which sound very much like TIE fighters as they're coming in. They have that same, but then they also have like the blasters even sound more.
That was such a good impression of a TIE fighter.
It's my first time ever doing it. I was just hopping out on a limb. So I can do like Italian guy impressions, and then I can do TIE fighters. So that's my repertoire.
Matt, that was so impressive. That was most impressive. To play off what you're saying, I thought it sounded very like the musical cues were very reminiscent of A New Hope, The Rescue of a Princess motif by John Williams. Yep. Bum bum ba 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 bum.
Yep.
Yeah, and the drums.
And then they're like, oh, he's in cell block, whatever. And then when they're blasting their way out, that control room looks exactly like the Death Star that C-3PO and R2-D2 are in A New Hope. That's all on purpose. Also, when they rescue Gregor, it's like he's Princess Leia in the situation, and the Bad Batch is Luke and Han, and Chewie. It's the same thing. And they did that on purpose. And I love that, because it rhymes, and it helps you make that connection between the two things. And it gives you that feeling that this is all the same universe, and it helps connect the dots.
I think that's one thing that the show is doing really well. You have inclusion of characters like Fennec and Cad Bane and the clones and Rex and the Kaminoans all existing within this same universe. So your mind isn't going, oh, that's the Mandalorian story. That's the Clone Wars story. That's the Bad Batch story. You go, oh, this is the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Those two characters are interacting.
Yes. And that's why when people complain, they're bringing back characters from all the other shows. It's not to just for fan service. It's to help you connect the dots between these shows, so it reminds you they're in the same world. That's why they do it. And that's why it's such an important storytelling device, is because if you have these characters connect, it makes it resonate more while you're watching the show.
Exactly. Next question is from Jellyfish Jade 21. And Jellyfish Jade 21 says, are the Bad Batch a commando unit? Technically, because Gregor mistook them for one because of their armor, and the Bad Batch weren't part of a regular battalion or company, and they did do their own assigned missions during the war. Commando, I mean, like the Bad Batch, they're Clone Force 99. They have their own specific like designation. I think they're proud of the fact that they're not like commandos or not like regs. And I think that they like being their own thing. And I think in a lot of ways, they're probably more efficient than the commandos because of their abilities and how they stand out from the other clones. So
I think, they're their own unique thing.
Which is interesting, because there was only that one commando guy, right? In charge of all the conscripted dudes.
Yeah.
Like, because Tech
what was his name? I feel like he was in he's been in something before.
It's a character called Scorch in the game Republic Commando.
Star Wars Republic Commando.
Which I personally, I have never played. I don't know anything about it, but I saw a lot of people get so excited. And I think that's great. Yeah. They're giving those nods.
It's worth mentioning. I'm not super familiar with it either. I never got super into that game. But yeah, it's worth mentioning that they throw him in there. And that's a true commando, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. But you know what else was cool about that is they made it so those commandos were harder to take down. It was apparent and obvious. They had to shoot them with the stuns a bunch of times, which, by the way, can we stop trying to stun these guys? They're bad guys. Okay. They're not clones anymore. You can shoot them, guys. Okay. You can shoot them. You don't have to stun everybody. It's kind of counterintuitive when you're escaping an Imperial base.
It is. And it's really weird to me how they go back and forth between shooting and stunning. And I'm like, will you please pick one? Like, I get it. It's really difficult to do, but like they don't care and they will kill you. Like, for God's sake, the commando shot Gregor.
Yeah. Stop. Like they're trying to kill you, and they're not you anymore. These aren't even clones. I could understand the stunning thing with the clones. Now you got to start blasting.
Next question is from No Doors 42, and they say, given the fact that Hunter being captured at the end of the episode parallels Kanan at the end of Rebels season 1, I think we could see the next episode play out similarly to Rebels, with Hunter being interrogated or taken to the Kaminoans. Okay, so in Star Wars Rebels season 1, the finale is called Call to Action, and at the end of the episode, Kanan sacrifices himself so that Ezra and the Ghost Crew will not get captured by the Inquisitors and the Empire and Tarkin. And it's interesting because when I was watching this episode and I saw Hunter like yelling at Tech to leave, the way that played out was almost exactly identical to the ending of Rebel season 1, when Kanan yells at Hera to take off and leave him. And Ezra is yelling in the background, no, we can't. We have to go back for him. And so I thought that was interesting that they paralleled that in a similar way. And I thought that maybe, leading into the finale, we could get some similar interrogation or maybe torture like the Empire likes to do.
Yeah. Or turning up that chip or converting him somehow, maybe putting a chip back in him. So I don't know. We don't know. I mean, they have him out, but what's going to happen here? And that's a major cliffhanger that we haven't really touched upon yet, but geez, so much happened in this episode. Crazy cliffhanger. What's going to happen? Who knows? I mean, this could go a number of different directions, but super well done. That's a great point, drawing the parallels there, because they've been doing this nonstop throughout the entire season, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. I also like that heroic self-sacrifice for my crew notion that they do. Because he's like the leader. Having him be the one who gets captured is like, wow, it's so much more. There's so much more gravitas, I guess, behind it. Mm-hmm.
And it's more impactful. I mean, if it was like Tech, I'd be like, that sucks. But Hunter being the one, it's like, all right, I feel like he's the leader of the crew. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
I have some theories about the end of the episode, but I'll save that for the very, very end. Because I did notice a couple things about Hunter being in the cell and then Crosshair confronting him. But let's see who's next. Oh, Zukong 24 says, oh, maybe I can just talk about what my thoughts were here based on this question. But Zukong 24 says, will Crosshair die or rejoin the Bad Batch, or will something else happen to him? Well, what do you think about that, first of all?
I don't know, it's such an interesting question because, Zukong, we've been theorizing on this if you've been listening to the show, and it's hard to know. It could go a lot of different directions. I think we can rule out him joining the Bad Batch again. I think that's the least likely thing to happen. It's possible, but I don't think it's likely. I think he'll either die or end up becoming some kind of leader with the Empire, and maybe starting the Death Trooper, thingy madoodle, because he kind of already has his own little squad of Death Troopers. But what do you think? I don't know. It's a tough question. They haven't really done a lot of character development with Crosshair, and they haven't done a lot of given a lot of direction for where you can theorize on where it could go. It's pretty mysterious at this point.
So I had a really interesting thought. So you and I talked a number of weeks ago who would be most likely to die in this show, and you and I agreed on it would probably be Hunter, because his death would carry the most weight for the rest of the crew. If he dies, Omega has to develop. They're lost. They don't know what to do because he's the designated leader, and they have to find their way, maybe leading into a season 2. So I think the most likely to die is Hunter. That being said, at the end of the episode, there's a moment where, we pan over to Hunter in his cell. Hunter looks up and he sees Crosshair walk over, and Crosshair says, I was hoping for the whole batch, but I guess you'll do. But then he opens the cell. And now maybe I'm reading into this too much, but the first place my mind went after I reflected on the episode was, wait a minute. He didn't say that line, A, very threatening like, and B, he opened up the cell. Is it possible that Crosshair's chip got damaged in the ion blast from a few episodes back? And maybe he's a double agent?
Ooh, that's an interesting theory for sure. We haven't really seen many hints to that, I think, but would they have hinted at it harder? See, now you got me thinking. That's a good theory, because that's definitely possible. And that would be the wave to bring him back into the crew. However, is he redeemable? Like, can we just forgive him? I don't know. That is a very interesting theory, though.
Because he didn't
potentially come in there and help him kind of start his own little uprising within the Empire. So
does the uprising come from Crosshair? Because if they were going to have him be like, surprise, take down the Scooby-Doo mask and he's like a double agent, would they necessarily hint at that? Because if they don't hint at that way, if they do make that reveal happen, it's a bigger, wait a minute, what? He switched?
Yeah. Like, when did it happen? When did the switch happen?
So I wonder if Crosshair's just been messing with the Empire at this point. And so when he says permission to hunt them down, it just could be his ploy to find them.
That is interesting. Wow, that's a great theory. I could see that potentially working. Or the other way it could go is he's pissed at Hunter and he was like, I don't like you anymore. And then Hunter somehow is able to talk some sense into him, or, fix his chip or whatever it may be.
Or
that's what I'm saying. It could go so many different directions. Who knows? That's a great theory, though. I like that. I like that theory. That's really the only way I guess you could bring him back, would be like if that ion blast did kind of ruin his chip.
Right. And still,
is he redeemable? Like, can we forgive him killing those innocent people?
I think it's really complex, but think about it too. They've shown us that the chip can be damaged, like we've seen in Wrecker, for better or for worse. And Gregor in Star Wars Rebels is kind of a little insane. He's a little like loopy, because he was in an explosion in season 5 of Clone Wars, which we have been told and we've seen has messed up his brain a little bit. So maybe Gregor's chip was messed up in the blast that he was in, and maybe something similar happened to Crosshair, where his chip got
Definitely
damaged.
Possible. It's a very interesting theory.
At the same time, maybe the Empire is going to put another chip into Hunter's head, since he had his removed by Rex in episode 8. Like, they could do so many things. That's how the
season ends. He turns both of them, and then they all start going after the Bad Batch season 2.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, so we're going to find out in these next couple episodes, but that's a very interesting theory.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I have no idea what they're going to do. That's what gets me, is it could go so many directions. I'm not like, yes, it's definitely that. So
yeah, I'm not 100% on anything, but that's an interesting one for sure. We'll see. I mean, next week we'll see.
Next question is from my best friend Lily, who I did a reaction video with this week, and you guys should definitely check
those out. Yeah, go check them out. We haven't done one in a couple, and I haven't done one in 2 weeks now. Melissa did one 2 weeks ago, but this is my first one back for a while, and they're good. They're good. So
go
shout out to Lily.
Lily says, theory: Omega is going to be more front and center in these final 2 episodes.
Yeah, they haven't really explored or developed her much since her character and like her story, since we get that relationship to Boba out. She's very important. She's obviously one of the more focal points of the show and underlying themes. And they developed the Kaminoan intentions in this episode a little bit more, which is going to tie into that. So we're definitely going to find out more of her storyline and where she's headed in these last 2 episodes of the season. And we're going to get some kind of big reveal or big intention, or something's going to happen to her, or we don't really know. But I definitely think there's going to be a lot of focus on her. And by the way, with the Kaminoan thing, Lama Su and Nala Se have not been on the same page, but they both wanted to escape. They both knew something's not going great with the Empire. So did Lama Su get blasted? I don't think so, but sounds like they want to blast him. And then Nala Se is like, they want to keep her because she's like a valuable person who can, continue doing stuff for the Empire, which she could end up leading the Kaminoan uprising later or something else, or, helping develop more clones to fight the Empire, kind of like I mentioned earlier. Or she could tie into the Empire's intentions or a different branch of the Empire, similar to Mandalorian ties that we got in
Yeah.
season 2. So there's a lot of different directions where we can go with the Omega Kaminoan Empire relationship.
Maybe Nala Se is setting the groundwork. Maybe they're going to use that character to set the groundwork for what happens with the cloning in the Mandalorian. Maybe Nala Se had a big part in that. And maybe she trains like a future generation of cloners. And that's how Mando's going to tie in. So.
Yep. Yeah. And she starts her own little division. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, they have some tricks up their sleeve, I think we can assume.
They do. It's very interesting because, you know, Lama Su's trying to throw her under the bus, and then Rampart's like, surprise, bitch.
So. Yeah, he is. He's like, we're actually gonna blast you, and then we're keeping Nala Se because she's smarter than you, idiot. You're just a stupid politician.
So it'll be interesting to see how they make those ties. Another thought I had is, again, with her weird sympathetic thing with the younger clones, she's like weirdly attached. And I wonder
Motherly.
Yes, it's very strange. You know how Lama Su wants to terminate Omega after extracting her DNA. Nala Se is just like, I want her to be fine. So again, these are the plot points, which I wonder, I don't know if they can solve all of these plot points without doing a season 2.
No, I think you're right. I think at this point, season 2's being made, at least in early stages. They have so much stuff they got to cover and fill in. It'd be very hard to tie it up in 2 episodes. It's possible, but I think they're probably going to extend it out to some more plot points in season 2.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Kaminoans before we move on?
I think we covered it. Yeah. Unless you do.
Yeah. They did talk about needing new clients. And so I wonder if Nala Se is contracted by Palpatine secretly. Now, let me just give a disclaimer here. I don't like the sequel trilogy. I do not appreciate what they did with undoing a lot of what came before. And I'm still on the fence on whether or not I want the writers to improve upon what the sequel trilogy laid down, or if I want them to ignore it entirely. That being said, they could lay the groundwork by saying that Nala Se was hired by Palpatine to do some secret cloning work. Or I don't know. What did you think about that line when they were talking about new clients?
I mean, she definitely has she's laying the groundwork for something. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think, I don't think you can ignore the sequels, like them or not. Let's try to build on them. Let's try to improve them. Very similar to the prequels. A lot of people didn't like those, which I don't know how. They're the greatest. No, but they are good. And the Clone Wars helped develop those characters more. Like the prequels or not, the Clone Wars made Anakin such a better character, made Obi-Wan such a better character. It gives us a new character, Ahsoka, you know, and I think that with these new shows, it's going to expand on that and potentially make the sequels better, just like the Clone Wars did with the prequels. So with that being said, I do think she's going to tie into this thing, either being contacted on the side by Palpatine or with Peter Pumpkin, Admiral Rampart, him being the mouth for the Emperor. We'll see, but it's definitely going to tie in somehow, I think, with that, because how else would they do it? You know,
I really don't know. But again, another plot point that has to be resolved. I don't think they can resolve this in 2 episodes. I personally don't, but I might be wrong.
Well, there's a lot to get into, you know, there's a lot of detail here that we're missing at the current moment, but it'll be interesting to see.
Next thought is from the Great Mad, and the Great Mad says, my only thought is I'm scared.
Yeah, same. I mean, what an ending to this episode. We all thought the same thing, nail biter throughout the whole thing. We're like, holy crap, there's so much going on here. There's so much they're setting up for these next couple episodes. So it's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be very intense. It's going to be great. We'll see what happens, but I agree. I am nervous. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Follow-up question from Luna_Tenebris says, my only thoughts are, Hunter.
Hunter? Not Rambo. Would have been kind of cool if we had, like, I thought he was going to kind of like fall into the woods and have his own little like Rambo in the woods thing.
I thought the same thing. Isn't there like he falls through the trees and I was like, this is so Rambo.
Yeah, and I thought they were like going to chase him to the woods and he would like be Rambo-esque and shoot him up. But that's not what happened. But it would have been kind of cool.
We kind of got that with Gregor in the beginning. Just a little bit, but it would have been cooler if it was Hunter. Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
He just takes out like a ton of troopers. Yeah.
That would be so sick. Next question is from 1RJTL. And 1RJTL says, my theory for the finale is that we might be able to see the clone rebellion that people have been talking about. Yes. And it might be this big...
Or the setting the stage for it, at least.
Oh.
I don't know that we'll necessarily see it, but I think, and I don't know if we talked about this in this take or the last take, but we're starting to see it. Nala Se is leaving with this little pack of clones. Maybe she's trying to start her own thing. Maybe her new client is some kind of rebel, contingent, whatever. She starts making a little, her own little army of clones. So that's definitely potential to be happening there. I don't know if we'll see it in this season. I think that's a lot to try to fit in two episodes. I mean, they could. The writers are great, so who knows?
Yeah.
But this is what we've been theorizing on for the last couple of weeks.
And it could also be, like we talked about, like it could be like a big clone Avengers moment where Rex comes back in the finale, Hauser does, Gregor does, Wolf. You get all of these big characters converging on this massive moment. But you know what? Ever since you brought up that could be in a second season, that's a lot. So
yeah, it could. I'm just saying they could set the stage where they're all like, all right, and they're like, let's do something, and that's kind of how they leave that part of the story, the stones unturned there, to be like, all right, come back in season 2 and watch what these clones do who are fed up with the Empire. I think that's a very realistic possibility.
Yeah, I think either way, I think it's safe to say that something is gonna, in some way, the Camino Uprising is being written into the show.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say for sure.
I agree.
Those, I believe, are all our questions / statements for this week.
That was a fantastic episode. I'm very happy with the way that went. We knew this was going to happen. I thought it would ramp up last episode, but that's okay. We got 2 nail-biting episodes coming up next. Who knows where it's going to go? Keep writing in. Write us and tell us what you think is going to happen, and we can start posting maybe some of those on the Instagram before the show, and we'll see who ends up being right.
Yeah,
because you guys know our thoughts, but where are you going to put your money on what happens? But we'll see. I think it was great. I think we covered everything. There was so much that happened that episode, but very well done. And we'll see where they end up going with all this.
Yeah, just looking over my show notes right now. Shout out to Ralph McQuarrie, rest in peace, for his designs being used in this show. Those were the original designs for the Stormtroopers, and I just think it's so awesome that they're finding a way to put those in the story in a way that feels very natural. So it's really cool to see his work.
Very natural, very cool, awesome. I love that aspect. When I saw them, you can watch in the reaction video. I saw it for the first time. I'm like, this is dope. Awesome integration here. Love that. So shout out to him. Fantastic contribution. And those are the little things. We talk about the little things, but they do a fantastic job incorporating tiny little bits and pieces here and there that make the show that much better. So, and shout out to everyone who makes the show. It cannot be understated. The animation, the artwork in this show, fantastic. It just gets better and better.
Yeah. They're really, I can't believe it. I never know what to say anymore, because it's like, it's amazing. Every single episode that we've done, we've been like, animation looks amazing,
real. But it all looks real. It's crazy. So shout out to all them. But with that being said, I think we got everything. I'm very, very excited for the next couple of weeks.
Before we conclude, do you have any theories leading into the finale? Do we have any final thoughts that we think are going to happen? Do you have a specific theory that you're like, I think this is going to happen? Like, what does the finale look like to you?
With the Camino Uprising, I think we're going to see, I think they hinted at that majorly this episode, and it confirmed a lot of our suspicions. So that's the only thing I feel pretty confident about, is they're at least going to go down that pathway and start talking about it more, or at least hint. I don't think they're necessarily going to show everything, but they're at least going to show some dissension from more clones. They've been doing that for the last couple episodes. I think that's going to continue. That's what I feel strongly about. Now with the Hauser stuff, and the Crosshair stuff, I'm not Hauser, sorry, Hunter stuff and Crosshair stuff, I'm not 100% sure on that. It could go so many different directions, as you and I discussed. I don't feel confidently about it one way or another. So I'm not super confident on that, but I do think then we'll get some big Omega reveals in the next episode or two, and how she kind of ties in with the Kamino and some more, and we'll see more of Nala Se's intentions. What about you?
I wonder if we will see Boba.
Oh, excellent point. Yeah.
Because that's a pretty big tie-in. And if he shows up, I mean, like, I don't know how they would do that, because again, all the story threads, they have a lot they need to do, but I wonder if we'll see Boba. I really want to be wrong, but I feel like Hunter is going to die.
Ooh, that'd be dark, but it would be a very interesting way of telling the story.
I feel
also
like he's going to.
Potential to maybe see Ahsoka for a split second or two.
Really?
Rex is up to something. Remember, he was talking with somebody, a couple episodes ago when they're on Braca. Likely Ahsoka. Could have been someone else like Wolf or Gregor or another clone, right? But I think there's a possibility she shows up for a second. I don't think she should show up for a long time, but they could at least have some kind of little bloop, there she is for a second. That's the potential of happening in these next 2 episodes. I think her and Rex are so close. I think it just naturally makes sense.
Yeah. And I'd lose my mind if that was the case.
Yeah.
If that happens, I'm probably going to text you in a fit of screams. I don't know about Boba. Boba, likely, not sure. I think very likely, not entirely sure. I think Nala Se and Lama Su, definitely we're going to get some answers there. God, they got so much to do. Omega.
What about Vader? Do we potentially see Vader for a second or two? That would be so cool.
Maybe in a hologram, I could see that.
Yeah, or just like a moment on a ship somewhere. It sets the stage for season 2.
Well, I could see like Admiral Rampart in a hologram reporting to Tarkin, and then Tarkin turning around and reporting to Vader what's going on in Kamino.
Yeah, or maybe the Bad Batch does something to really negatively impact the Empire in some way. They blow up a mining facility, an Imperial base, and then you see Vader in like the last frame, and he's like, "I'll handle this myself," and you're like, "Oh shit, Vader's after the Bad Batch or something." That could be really cool.
Oh my god. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a jump, but if they did something like that, I'd lose my shit.
leading into that, let's do this. If you guys have a massive thought or theory on where these last 2 episodes are going to go, email us at AnotherStarWarsPod@gmail.com, and we will share your theories to our Instagram. How's that sound?
Great idea.
Let's do that.
Great idea. Let's do that. But in the meantime, shoot that stuff over. Go follow us on social media. I already mentioned it, but I'm mentioning it again. *_wars_pod. Go check out our TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Shoot us an email if you want. And then subscribe, like our videos. We post clips on this YouTube, and comment and engage, because that's like the best part of this show is engaging with the common fans of Star Wars. So, and tell your friends if you guys have friends who are in Star Wars, and this is a nice new show we can all participate in together. So yeah, until then, we'll see you guys next week for, I don't think the name of the episode's out yet, but
no, they didn't release those.
We'll see. But intrigue and excitement as we end the first season of Bad Batch. So stay tuned, and we'll do a breakdown next week.
Yeah, should be good. Hopefully we'll get a season 2. But last note.
I think we will.
Last note, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker. What else? I always forget. I'm never good at
anywhere you get podcasts. Google Podcast, doesn't matter. Just go anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe on Apple. Follow us on Spotify. Those are the most important ones. Leave us a review if it's on Apple. It does help. And even if it's just a star or a quick comment, we love you guys. Thanks for participating in the show. And we can't wait for many episodes to come.
Yeah, Hunter, please don't die. You're probably going to, but please don't die. Okay, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.